Alright guys, today I'm going to be talking about a great little gem released on the original Game Boy. And don't blame yourself too hard if you've never heard of this one before, because it's actually very obscure and extremely rare on top of that. It is called Trip World, and it was developed and published by Sunsoft in 1992 in Japan and 1993 in Europe. It never got a US release. And it's actually a very rare game. I've been hunting this game for years, ever since I read an article online. And on and off I'd search, online on eBay and such, and I finally just recently found an auction on eBay that it's, let me just say, the most I've ever spent for a handheld game. But I've been hunting this game for so long because it just reminded me so much of like Kirby's Dream Land mixed with like some really cute, different kind of looking characters. But I just knew I had to have it, and just a warning, this game tends to go for at least $100 for just the cartridge. Who knows how much it would go for if it was complete in the box, but either way it was totally worth it. And as you can see here, it's a typical side-scrolling platformer that is comprised of 5 different levels, and it's actually very short and it's a very easy game, but it has a great charm to it. First of all, the most striking thing about this game right off the bat is that the visuals are really excellent. It has great detail in the backgrounds and the foreground environments. Now I am playing this on the Super Game Boy, but I decided to keep it in the original monochrome colors so that you can see the detail in its original form. And it takes you to all different locations, such as a mountain, a forest kind of jungle, like a cave kind of area, and a castle. Underwater level as well, so it's definitely very varied. Also, the music in Trip World is flat out amazing, so let me just play you a couple of little clips here from the music so you can hear it better. I thought it was just some of the best music I've ever heard on the Game Boy. The story of Trip World is very simple, that you can actually enjoy either on the Japanese or European cartridge because there's no text in the game. It's told simply with a cutscene at the start and end of the game, so it doesn't matter if you get the European or Japanese version. I myself do have the European version, but there are no differences beyond the cover art on the cartridge. But it comes down to playing as this little bunny-like creature who lives with his grandfather on a mountain, and they guard this flower with supernatural powers because it keeps peace to the land. And in typical video game fashion, the bad guy comes along, steals the flower, and things start to go, downhill from there. The creatures of the land start to turn on one another, they become violent, and you go on a quest to retrieve the flower back and restore peace to the land. But here is where the story actually plays into one of the craziest and kind of very unique aspects of the game, in that I would say 50%, maybe even more, of the enemies in Trip World do not attack. They're not hostile. They're actually just in the game world doing their own thing. So when I first started playing the game, I was actually attacking enemies, and they weren't fighting back. So I'm like, what the heck is going on here? But as it turns out, they're just non-hostile characters. And sometimes they'll only attack when you provoke them, so unless you're attacking them, they'll just keep on doing their own thing. So Trip World is actually a very, very easy game, do not get me wrong. You can first of all beat this game in as short as, 10 or 15 minutes if you've got everything down pat, kind of like a speed run almost. A normal playthrough for someone will probably take about a half an hour at most, because there's only 5 different levels, and each level, though not entirely linear, there's a couple of little branching paths and hidden passageways. You can see everything there is to do in Trip World with one sitting, no problem. But that's not, I have no problem with that. I don't have a problem with short games, because Trip World is full of charm and personality. Another thing that I absolutely love about it is that, getting back to the enemies in this game, or should I say, the creatures, since they don't really, some of them don't attack you, every level has unique enemies. So you'll happen upon, something in this game and you'll never see it again. you'll see enemies or, creatures in the world only once, and then you'll never see them again throughout the entire game. So I just thought that was really unique and different. It almost feels like a scrapbook, because you're going from level to level, encountering all different and unique types of enemies every time. And the little bunny guy that you play as can transform into 3 different shapes himself. So he has his normal walking stance, which he can just walk on the ground and kick his enemies. And you can also fly by pressing up on the D-pad and pressing the B button. And that will give you, your ears will turn into wings and you can fly around the levels. But it's not like a Kirby game where you can use it, infinitely. If you bump into a wall or try and change directions or anything like that, you will fall down. And you can also turn into a fish, and you can swim in water and also blow air at enemies in the water. But because it is such a short game, all of these different shape-shifting forms that you can take on are very limited in their uses, and you very rarely have to use any of these transformations. Like the fish form, you only have to use maybe 2 times throughout the entire game. There is a secret form that I actually stumbled upon where if you pick up a power-up, because there are different power-ups in this game which will allow you to sort of throw bombs that will grow flowers on your enemies' heads, as well as allow you to attack with your tail. But if you pick up one power-up and then pick up another power-up right after before the other one wears off, you'll actually turn into this big, large version of yourself, which will allow you to fire like a beam out of your mouth. It's completely insane and over the top. I think it's an Easter egg. I've sort of highlighted it in the video here for you guys to check out. But it's little things like that, as well as the hidden areas that you can find, that really add some little bit of replay value to the game. And at the end of each of the 5 stages, there is a boss to face, which is a bit challenging the first, 1 or 2 times you face them, because you have to get their patterns down. And definitely the most challenging part of Trip World is the final Stage 5 boss, because it's not just a single boss, it's actually a boss rush mode, which tasks you with defeating multiple bosses in a row. And if you die on one, you have to restart all the way back to the beginning. And you do have limited continues and limited lives in this game, so you definitely do have the capability of dying on the end boss and being sent back all the way to the beginning of the game, which did happen to me, because the last boss rush in this game is actually pretty challenging. But it does wrap up the story very nicely, and the last cutscene kind of unravels the whole mystery behind who would steal the flower. But, hey, some people might question why, I'd go through so much trouble and spend so much money on a very short Game Boy game that you can beat in, under a half an hour. But to tell you the truth, it just comes down to the unique experience of playing Trip World. I've never really quite played a game like it, and I definitely thought it was worth the price of admission, and I can see myself playing this game countless times in the future. So anyway, guys, I hope you got a good look at Trip World, a game that you've probably never heard of before, and I just wanted to bring some attention to this little underrated gem. So, thanks for watching.